another episode of Babcia and Yia Yia Travel the World. We're so happy you're here. It's a place where we like to spend some time talking about all things travel and how travel can be part of your lifestyle, whether you're hanging out at home or you've got boarding passes in your hands. I'm really hoping for that soon. Travel influences us every single day in all kinds of things we do. My name is Alex. I play the Babcia role in all of this. I'm a mom, a teacher, a traveler, a blogger. You can find all the information that we share on this podcast at www.tgctravel.com. And I'm an overall travel junkie. Meet my best friend, Terri.
Hey guys, I'm Terri. I play the role of Yia Yia in this. I am a mom, a teacher, and I'm a traveler. Today's episode is we're going to share a story, two waterfalls, and how those magical places make travelers of us all. I'm so excited about this. And as always, we are ready to talk books, food, travel tips, and products that we love. And it all starts with this little segment we like to call Now Boarding.
Today we have like the most amazing, surreal story to share with you. We're going to tell you the whole thing, but we're going to let you know now that it is about Niagara Falls and Victoria Falls. It is the tale of two waterfalls and how this crazy instance in our lives came about. So I thought we would start by sharing our global book picks and all of our now boarding picks before we kind of dig in deep to our story. Sound good?
Perfect.
Okay. My global book pick is a children's book this week. It's called The Water Princess. It's a book about a little African girl who starts to understand how important water is in her world. And she has to go with her mother every day and travel miles and miles and miles to get the water that they need for their everyday life. So it's a story based in reality. It's a story that's a fairy tale, and it's a story about the power of water. So I thought it went really good with what we're talking about. We actually featured this book in our 10 books in 10 minutes series from this past summer. So we're going to link that in the show notes. What about you? Global book pick.
Well, I like, the Where Is series, kind of like Who Is or Who Was. Well,
Yes.
they have one on Niagara Falls. So I think it's great because not only does it tell the history, it tells about all the crazy stunts that people have attempted, like going in a barrel down Niagara Falls, and how one day that it could possibly disappear.
Oh, so
Very
kind of,
cool.
yeah, like ecological, historical,
Yes.
geographical. Yeah, very cool. I love those books from the Where Is or Who Is series. I call them the bobblehead books because they always look like a bobblehead.
And my sixth graders love them.
Yes, they are kind of addicting when you can finally get them in hands that are willing to take them for sure. Yeah. Okay. So my travel tip is about Victoria Falls down in Zambia in Africa. Okay. The biggest thing that I can say after being there was I happened upon a circumstance that I had no idea existed. I couldn't find it anywhere. But when I went to go through the admissions counter, there were college interns there from the local university who were willing to just practice their tour guide skills on people that were coming into the park. And apparently they're there on a weekly basis. They do it often, and they are there for the love of being a tour guide. These are some of my favorite people in the world. And I was lucky enough to have a tour guide in Victoria Falls named Isaac. And Isaac took me around. He was so thorough and did such a good job of explaining everything to me. Ask at the counter if the interns are there. That is my big travel tip about Victoria Falls. What about Niagara Falls?
Okay, so my travel tip, of course, is see the falls from both sides. Of course, there's an American side and there's a Canadian side.
Mhm.
So it's very, very important to see both sides. And it is the Canadian side, I think, gives you a more picturesque what you think of in your mind. It's really, really beautiful. But you need to do the America side too, because then you can do the Cave of the Winds, and that's the only thing you can only do that on the America side. So that's super important.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do think that some people think that the American side is a little kitschy, it's the 1940s honeymoon spot, and maybe is a
Mm,
has-been. I think that it's starting to come back.
it
So,
is
little
around the
bit by
town,
little bit.
and we'll talk about it later. But in the town, you can tell back in its day, it was a
The bomb.
little tour. And now it's a little touristy, but okay.
Yeah. Okay, so if you are headed to Victoria Falls in the Zambian area or the Zimbabwean area, or even in Botswana, because they're all kind of very close together right there, I highly suggest a life straw and a good water bottle. I I think that they are so important because your other alternative is to continually have a plastic water bottle in your hand, a one-use water bottle, and it stinks. Like, you're in Africa and the environment and all of its issues are in the forefront of your mind, and you will feel guiltier having a plastic water bottle in your hand compared to somewhere else. So, life straw and a water bottle so that you don't have to keep going through single-use plastics.
Well, I'm going to add that to my list. I'm going to add it to
Yeah.
my list. So for my travel product, because you're in Niagara Falls, you're going to do the Cave of the Winds. There's a lot of water. You need to you could bring your own poncho, but if you do the Cave of the Winds, they give you a poncho, and they give you these beautiful disposable sandals, but you do need to have some other protective gear to keep other things dry. Like your phone, stuff like that. I mean, it will get wet because you are right down there at the waterfall.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I'm going to flip back because we are doing two sides of the world here in our now boarding section. I We weren't sure how to bring up food in this particular segment. And then I thought, no, no, no. If there was something so unique about being by Victoria Falls, it was this incredible restaurant called the Elephant Cafe. And just to give you an idea of what happens, you get on a boat and you go up the river. So you're on the top of the falls and you go up the river, kind of like in a speedboat. It's about maybe a 15-20 minute ride. It's fabulous. There are animals everywhere. The elephants are curious about you. The crocodiles are on the bank. The hippos are waiting, a bit of a distance from you. There's a small -1 rapids, like it's, just a little bumpy, fun. And you pull up to this incredible place where a Michelin star chef is going to feed you the most incredible menu from a 0 kilometer. Um, what is the best word that I'm looking for? It's a 0 kilometer meal, meaning that everything is sourced right there, no imports. And I'm telling you, it was one of the most amazing meals I ever had. But then on the banks of the great Zambezi River, then somebody whistles like for a dog, and here come 10 elephants to say hello to you and let you feed them peanuts. And these are all elephants that have found their way to this particular foundation because of circumstances that won't let them be away from people. So they were either used as a farm animal or they were orphaned young and they can no longer go back to the wild. And they need to stay with people because they trust them so much. And these 10 beautiful, beautiful souls meet with you and let you take pictures, and you learn all about elephant conservation, and they're free roaming, but they know that this is their home. And probably the most interesting thing that I learned there was that elephants have every single feeling that humans have. So they have a sense of humor, they can pout, they can get angry, they can be happy, they can be melancholy. They do remember everything. And it was just an incredible experience, and definitely part of the Victoria Falls experience.
That sounds fabulous. I
Yes.
wanna go. I so wanna go just for the elephants.
Yes.
But I'm there for food too. So
Yes.
my food picks. Um, I picked one, um, on the American side, which
Mhm.
is Top of the Falls, and it's American it's as you could say, American style. They have, like, burgers and all kinds of stuff, but I think the view is what is awesome.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
on the Canadian side, you have the Prime Steakhouse. Again, incredible views, excellent steakhouse as well. But now I'm
Mhm.
gonna take us one step further because we are near Buffalo, New York. And I'm gonna tell you, I enjoyed eating near the falls, but if it's my choice, I'm gonna save my appetite and I'm gonna travel to Duff's Wings because I'm in Buffalo and I want some buffalo wings, and they have by far for me the best buffalo wings around. So much that I order their buffalo wing sauce and have it shipped home.
Oh my gosh.
Cuz
Wow.
we love some buffalo wings at our house.
Yeah, but you know what though? I don't think that a lot of people, and I have to tell you, I'm definitely included in this. We think about buffalo wings and we think about buffalo. I never really put it with Buffalo, New York.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, it's just one of those silly things that, of course, but I'd never done
Yeah.
it before.
And
Wow.
there's some competition, some people say Dove, some people say Anchor because Anchor's was the original, uh, but Duff's by far is I it's just the best chicken wings. I'll go back there anytime.
Oh my gosh, amazing. All right, let's wrap up our now boarding segment with a little bit of travel tech. So, tell me about Niagara Falls and what would be helpful travel tech wise for me.
Okay, so if you're going because you wanna do this before, because like me, I found it after the fact, so, um, definitely it's on my list to use every time we go. It's Niagara Falls State Park walking tour app, and it's fabulous. It's a guided tour, there's videos, and all on your phone, so you can do it at your leisure. So I am excited next time to go to use it. What about you?
Definitely.
What do I need
Definitely.
when I go to Victoria Falls?
Well, I am going to give you a holistic app or a holistic travel tech tip, because when you're overseas, or quite frankly, anywhere outside of the internet that you feel secure with, I highly suggest a VPN, just to mask your identity and make sure you don't have an identity theft issue. I will tell you, I stayed in a hotel that was so close to the falls that the hotel Wi Fi worked within the national park. And I did use my VPN there just to make sure. And if you're not sure what a VPN is, it's basically a server that allows you not it's kind of like a firewall for your Wi-Fi on your devices. So I think that's probably the best way to explain it. So I definitely recommend a VPN if you're visiting down there, because there is a lot of public Wi-Fi. So a good idea for sure. So, Terri, I'm super excited to talk about our topic this week. But before I even get started on that, I had a few listeners ask me a very interesting question, and I never really thought about answering this, but I have a strange feeling that more people have this question than we think.
Okay.
The question is, Why do we do the now boarding segment first? So I thought I would answer it. The
I
reason
think
that
it's a good idea.
yeah, the reason that the now boarding segment is first is because we are really committed in making sure that while we have fun on our show and while we talk about all these things, it's great. We want to make sure that we stick to our commitment of giving good travel tips and good travel advice before we do anything else. So, before we even get started with something, we think about what our listeners could use before we kind of dig deep into our story so that they could think about those things while we're talking about it. That's
I
the
agree.
idea.
And you know what? And if you think about it, what do you do before you go someplace? You board the plane.
That's
You
right.
board the plane before you take off. There you
That's
go.
why we call it now boarding. So let's take off and talk about a tale of two waterfalls, Terri.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let me set the stage. Every summer, we two teachers get the chance to get out of town. Now, I tend to travel with my mother, and we tend to fly across an ocean. Terri, you tend to get in the car and go somewhere with the fam.
Right. True.
Yes. Okay. So it just so happened that last summer, so not the horrible COVID summer, but the summer before that, because we're not
Mhm.
counting this summer at all.
It did
Um,
exist.
it did exist. We found ourselves in a very unique situation. I was in Zambia to teach with a group called Family Legacy with a fellow teacher that I had taught with while we were stationed in Japan. And by the way, can I just say thank you to all of our listeners for listening to that show? It's by far our number one rated show. And I am so happy that you guys feel like we gave you enough to listen to that show as much as you guys have. So I really appreciate it. So, my friend from Japan lives in Africa in Zambia in Lusaka, and I went to go teach at one of the schools that she's affiliated with this group called Family Legacy. And of course, I'm in Africa. I'm going to do the very thing that everybody thinks about. I want to visit Victoria Falls and I want to go on safari. So, I was in Livingstone, which is the town on the Zambian side of the falls, and I was I was there, and it was my very first glimpse. I was by myself. I was waiting on my mom to arrive, and I was there, and I called you. And it
Yes.
just so happened that you were at
Niagara Falls.
crazy. It was just so surreal to think that the two of us were talking to each other. We were FaceTiming each other with this unbelievable, powerful water behind us. And we were half a world apart. Like, how often does that happen in your life that you're kind of in one of those happenstances? So it was just a really unique moment. And I found a lot of glee in the fact that this was the life we were leading and these were the choices
Yes.
we were making to make that happen. So I thought, well, we need to take our phone call and we need to turn it into something that other people can use. So we came up with 10 questions to ask each other about the two different waterfalls we were at. Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So, the first thing that I want to do is I want to ask you to set the scene in Niagara Falls, New York, because you were on the American side when I talked to you. Okay, so give me the lay of the land. What's it like when you kind of get off the highway and you start pulling into town?
Well, the first thing is that it was me and my husband, and we were driving. We got to rent a car from the airport, and first thing we're doing is we're going to see Niagara Falls. So make sure you get on the highway, and they keep saying, make sure you stay on the American side. Make sure you stay on the American side. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, wind up in Canada, and I don't have my passport with me because
Mhm.
that's another show on its own.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So you're driving, you drive through town, you're driving through the city of Buffalo, and you exit off, and it's very then you're at a wad like there's water systems all around you.
Mhm.
And so then it's just like you're driving in to a national park, a state park, and then you really don't get the feel of the falls until you get out and walk up to them. The town itself is a little touristy. Of course, you have your shops and all that are like, buy your Niagara Falls t-shirts here. And then very clearly, you can see the area in which you go through if you're gonna go onto the Canadian side.
Mhm.
Um, so but it's very peaceful, and when you walk up to it, it's just majestic to see all this water, and the power that it creates is
Yeah.
amazing. It's
Yeah.
just you're in awe. You're in awe. So what about when you're going up to Victoria Falls? Because I know
Well,
it's gonna be different. I mean, it's so different.
it is so different because my first glimpse was from the air. I was flying on a little hopper plane, like a 16-seater plane from the capital of Zambia, Lusaka, and I was making my way to the Livingstone airport. As you're coming over, you start to see the Great Zambezi River kind of widen and get bigger and like you can kind of see it kind of twist through the African bushland. And it is amazing. And then the pilot came over the loudspeaker and he said, we will be doing a circle in the sky so that you can see out your window the smoke that thunders, which is known in the local language as Mosone Tunyai. And I'm sure I just butchered that completely, but that's exactly what the words mean, the smoke that thunders, because that is how the tribal people before colonization described what you saw, the humidity coming from the falls. So he circled around, and sure enough, you see the river snaking and you see this incredible white plume. And so you don't see the falls themselves, you just see this plume, and you're like, holy moly, that has got to be so powerful to create that ever constant cloud that lives there, and I was there in the dry season, so I can't even imagine what it's like during the rainy season because it was massive. So I landed, and in order to get to the hotel that I was staying at, you have to drive through the National Reserve where all of the animals roam free. And my driver was amazing. He stopped at the monument that puts that plume kind of like right behind you. So you kind of get a moment where you see David Livingstone, who kind of discovered it for the Western world. You see the place where he saw it for the first time and the upper river and the plume behind you. And of course, there are locals in terms of elephants and many species of deer and lots of other things kind of roaming around. I left a video of the welcoming parade that I got as we were driving through. We actually had to stop our vehicle and let an entire herd of elephants walk by us, and it was one of the most amazing things that you can imagine. It was amazing. So it will I got to the falls themselves and kind of the same thing. You kind of walk around a corner and you hear them before you see them, and it is really like an awestruck feeling. You really do have that amazing feeling when you see that much water and the power that's behind it. Like amazing. So people have been going to these two falls for a really, really long time. What would you say is the must do moment when you visit Niagara Falls?
The must do for me was I wanted to do the Cave of Winds, and you go and you actually watch a very interesting video on the history of the falls. And then you go out and you're geared up with your poncho and your beautiful disposable sandals, and you make your way to the elevator, and then it takes you down, and you walk out, and you are basically walking right by the falls. It is amazing. So that is
Mm,
definitely worth doing. Then there's the boat ride, which is awesome. You can do there's 2, one is blue and one is red, and I always get it mixed up in my head. One is on the American side, is one is on the Canadian side, but you
mhm.
actually can ride it and you go behind the falls.
Oh my gosh.
So that yes. So again, poncho up, protective gear up, because 'cause you're gonna get wet. And then the other thing is just to walk around, because there's so many paths and there's so many other small falls that it's
Mhm,
just amazing to see. And now I've done it in the summer when you and I called, and I've
mhm.
also done it in the winter where it's freezing cold, and it's still amazing on both. I mean, unbelievable,
That
unbelievable.
is
What
that is
about
so
you?
neat. Well, to me, I think the biggest difference between these two falls physically is the fact that Victoria Falls is really kind of in a gorge. So there's no like the river is at the top, it falls and then it continues to flow like Niagara Falls. So there's kind of
Mhm,
no
mhm.
boats at the bottom because it's really kind of rocky, rapidy water at the bottom. So there's no like tourist boat to get on. There are beautiful pathways to walk through the area and see it. And you will see like Jackknife Bridge is a pedestrian bridge that you can walk across to get a little further into it. And just for size reference, Victoria Falls is about 3 times bigger than Niagara Falls in
Right,
kind of
okay.
all the areas on average. So you're
Mhm.
looking at like a mile across onto the Zimbabwe side. It the the whole thing stretches like a mile, which is it's a lot to imagine that much water falling down. And I still kind of can't wrap my head around the fact that it is it was the dry season. It's like there's more, I mean, that was kind of the way it
Right.
felt. So, if I were to say that there were a must do thing, I think adventure lovers, people who like a thrill, their must do thing would be to really make sure that they get out to the Devil's Pool, which is right at the top. It's at the top of the falls and it's in the middle of the falls. You have to have a guide to take you out there, but it's very easily arranged and you can go swimming and there is a kind of stone rim and you can look over the falls from this kind of natural pool that's up there. They call it the Devil's Pool. So that would be the thrilling moment. And a lot of people who make YouTube videos and are kind of social media people, they do backflips into the little Devil's Pool. And it's just like my feet are tingling just thinking about it because I saw them up there and I was like, absolutely no way am I doing that. But I think that there are other things to do for people who maybe aren't that much of a thrill seeker. And I would say that the must do is to get there early in the morning and walk around and just kind of see the falls as the day is breaking and really kind of just take it in, because you do get to just walk on the pathways and kind of see it from all these different angles, and to take the path that goes all the way down to the bottom so that you can really get an idea of what it takes to do that. Like, it's a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what else besides Niagara Falls? I mean, it's great to see these falls, but what else is in the area that would be worth a visitor's time?
Oh, because you're right next to Buffalo, like,
Mhm.
it's right there. So, there's tons to do in Buffalo. It's a big city, so there's obviously you can go to museums, you can go to the zoo. I mean, there's just a million things to do. Whereas we drove a little further out
Mhm.
and stayed outside. We actually stayed in Lucille Ball's hometown.
No, neat.
So yeah, and every time I think of Niagara Falls, I think of the skit that Lucille Ball did about Niagara Falls. That's all I can always think of that. It was so hilarious. But getting to around Niagara Falls, there isn't a ton because it's a huge state park, and
Mhm.
the main focus is Niagara Falls.
The falls
So
themselves.
yeah, definitely though venture out and see Buffalo, see some of the surrounding cities. It's so
Mhm.
worth it
Mhm.
because upstate New York is so different than thinking of like New York City. It's
Right.
completely different, completely different.
Yes, being a native of that area, upstate New
Yes.
York is a different country compared to New York City for sure. Yes, and it is quite far away. It's not as close as people think.
No, no, it's
It's
not.
actually quite some distance. Yeah. So there are other things to do around Victoria Falls. I will tell you, there was a great zip lining or flying fox experience. There is rafting and hiking and gorge swings for those who love those kind of activities. There is a Livingstone Museum that kind of talks about not only the English and tribal occupations of the area. It talks about the archaeological history too, and it's quite a small museum in the middle of town. However, done so well, really done very well. So that's definitely worth it. And of course, probably the number one thing that I would recommend is ensure that you do some sort of safari, some sort.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yes, I mean, you're there and you have to do it, and, it's quite simple. I stayed at a hotel called Avani, which was kind of its own resort, and I will tell you, and its own safari, because there were wild animals roaming. This particular hotel, along with, I believe, 2 others, in total, I think there's 3 in total, that are within the national park reserve boundaries. Um, Part of them being allowed to be there is that they have to understand that the animals have the right of way. So I will say I have photo documentation of zebras at the pool bar. Like, that was a thing, and I was blown away that they were perfectly happy. And I woke up in the morning and I opened up my curtains, and staring back at me, very happy, were 3 zebras eating the grass right outside my door. And so I opened the door just to see what would happen. And because I was given a lot of information about, you can open your door and they'll be fine. They're not going to walk in or anything. They certainly won't hurt you. They're very gentle, just as long as you don't get behind them out of their view. They'll kick if they know that you're there and they can't see you. So it was amazing. And we have an entire blog post about going on safari. And I went in Chobe, Botswana, which is not very far away, um, just about an hour away, but an incredible experience in just getting there. So, that would probably be the thing that I would recommend the most. Like, if all you do is go there to see the falls and the animals, you've done so much already. Although I will say there's just so much, and the food is great, and there's so many other things there that really are amazing. And speaking of that, what are some of the dining options in the area? Are there unique things by your falls?
Well, I wanted to add also that you're right there at the Canadian border. So
Yes.
definitely another option if you have your passport would be to go, like I said, see it from the Canada side and drive away from the right there at the falls and go into some of the other little towns
Hmm.
was fabulous. As far as eats, it's going to be your typical touristy, I wanna say more. They don't really focus on I did not notice, any specialty. Now, there was a restaurant, it made me think of you, because it had
Hmm.
been there serving for, like, 54 years. It was a little Polish restaurant,
There
and
are
it
a
was
lot of Polish people in that area of the world.
and they said it's supposed to be fabulous. So, but you had your other, um, touristy style. Even I think when you go to the restaurants they have where you're looking over at the falls, I
Hmm.
think a lot of times you're paying more for your view.
Always.
Oh, always.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I don't think I would visit Niagara Falls for the food options, because like, I
Fair
think
enough.
yeah, there's like um, a walk-up restaurant,
Uh-huh.
not restaurant, I wouldn't even call it a restaurant, like a fast food
Right.
place that's actually there. So, I mean, there's not any really specialties at Niagara Falls. I
Mhm.
think you're there to see the falls.
And to tell you the truth, you're not that far from Toronto, which is a food mecca. Like, I almost would think that it could be a ton of fun to base yourself out of Toronto,
And again,
so
and I'm gonna say this,
Mhm.
go into Buffalo and get some damn wings because they are fabulous. And then I got some sponge candy that Buffalo's
Mhm.
known for,
No.
and it was delicious. It was like air-filled nougaty center covered in
Ooh,
chocolate.
oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I never
it
heard of
was
that
really cool.
candy.
Yeah, sponge candy. I didn't either until I was up there.
And the more you know, I feel like we just gave a public service announcement.
That well, let me see. Sponge candy, buffalo wings, and, they have this sandwich called beef on weck, and
Mhm.
it's the way the bread is made in that area only, and
Mhm.
it's like a French dip almost. Fabulous.
Mhm.
Fabulous.
And I'm sure that that bread is as good as it is because of the water that is used. Hear me now, people. If there is something I want you to know, it is that pasta and bread and bagels that are part of the
Mm.
bread family are completely dependent on the water in which they are cooked with. And I bet that the water is really good. The New York State aquifer is amazing water, and then you have the Niagara water, which is so aerated. I'm
Mhm.
sure it is amazing.
So
Amazing.
there you
Okay.
go.
Yeah. So we have alluded to the fact that both of these waterfalls are international borders.
Yes.
Before they're anything else, before they're tourist attractions or all this other stuff, they separate 2 countries apiece, right?
Right,
So,
right.
in terms of where I was, um, the majority of the falls lie on the Zambian side of the river, and, the smaller side, is in Zimbabwe. So it definitely does that, and not too far away downriver are 2 more countries, and when I say not too far away, I mean within about, 35 miles, so it's really not far at all. Um, Actually, I think maybe even less than that. I think I may be overshooting that, maybe about 15 are Botswana and Namibia. So they call it the Four Corners, just like we have our 4 states that are the Four
Mhm,
Corners.
mhm.
They call that Four Corners because it all kind of converges at the Chobe and Zambezi intersection. And so you have a lot going on in a very small amount of space when it comes to those international borders. So you do need to be very vigilant about having that passport and making sure that you have the right stamps in the right countries, because it is not like Europe where once you get through the airport and you get the stamp, you're kind of good to go in the greater area that you're in. No, 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 no. These people take their immigration very seriously. And it is crazy to go from one country to another there. It is a process, and you need to be prepared for that process. When I went from Zambia to Botswana, I had to cross the river on a truck ferry as a pedestrian. And when I had to get my stamp out of Zambia, cross the river on the truck ferry with like hauling my suitcase. And then when we landed on the other side, a guide met us there, and we um, were taken to customs and immigration there. And we had to put our shoes on this particular wet pad. It was like a mat inside of a frame to make sure that we weren't bringing any contaminants from the other side of the river to Botswana, so that all of the all of God's animals were safe.
So
Like,
I bet you were, like, standing like it was like bleach, right?
I don't think it was even that caustic. I believe it was like a natural thing, like, it wasn't a chemical, and
Oh,
you just
okay.
kind of stood in it, and it kind of naturally washed the bottom of your feet, because remember, Botswana has a constitution that's an eco-constitution.
Mhm.
So, they're really big in playing well with Mother Nature. It's a huge thing. I couldn't believe that that was, like, this is such a huge process. It was an incredible experience to do that. A little scary, I have to say, because like we were being told the steps along the way. I didn't know them as we were going. And it was very, very, very interesting to do the whole thing. It
Oh, I
very
can imagine.
interesting. Yeah. So so international borders are very interesting. And right now, the border that you were at happens to be closed down.
Yeah.
However, I do think it's very comical. The last time I was in Niagara Falls, I was maybe 8 years old. I was really young.
Mhm.
And, I will say, I don't remember all the signs saying, like, "By the way, Canada's not that far away. Don't forget your passport," but you're saying that they're there everywhere.
Well, I think to get to Canada, you're definitely hopefully you can read, because 'cause you're driving, but, I mean,
Yes.
I'm sure it happens, it happens. You get on the highway, you make a wrong turn, there's nowhere to turn around, you gotta commit.
Mhm.
Um, but it's not a good thing to commit if you don't have a passport. So but what's amazing is you're standing there and you are just staring out over at Canada or vice versa, and you see the people and the tourists. I mean, it's very, very close. And it's like, oh, this is no big deal. I mean, this is not a thing
Mhm.
because it's just it's amazing to think, well, there's Canada and here I am. You don't really it doesn't seem like a big deal, to me.
Mhm.
It was
Yeah.
actually it was quite cool. It was quite cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it would be fun to kind of compare and contrast both sides of it too. I was not going to the Zimbabwean side of the falls, though.
Now, I will say that the pictures, the postcards, everything you see when you think of Niagara Falls comes from the Canada side.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah. Yeah. But they're bigger, right? The Canada side is bigger than
Yes.
the American side. Yeah, right.
Yes.
The American side includes Horseshoe Falls. Am I right on that?
Correct.
Yeah.
Uh, wait. Horseshoe Falls may be on the Canada side.
Oh, okay. Well, see, there you go. Yeah.
I'd have to go pull my my little flyers and stuff. Um, but I know like American Falls or America Falls. So there's a lot to see. But it's gorgeous on either side.
Yeah. Okay. So, pop quiz time. What was the most like notorious or crazy thing you heard about Victoria Falls? I mean, Niagara Falls.
Oh, I can always remember people wanting to set world records and go over in a, 50-gallon drum or whatever
Mhm.
and go down the falls. That to me is crazy because once you see it, you know you're not surviving it.
Yeah. Very few did. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What about Victoria Falls?
Well, probably the most interesting moment that I had was at the upper side of the falls. So I told you about my tour guide, Isaac, and
Mhm.
he was bringing me around, and they're very good at what they do. And he brought me up to the top of the falls first, because that's kind of where the entrance to the park is. And he said, to me. He was just casually talking about it, and there are kind of baboons and some monkeys, and, like, there's wildlife around you, a ton of birds because it's a micro rainforest, and he goes, "Now, don't come here at night because hippos really like this spot." And I thought, Isaac, that is some good advice because I can promise you, along with not being on the Zimbabwean side where there are no safety rails and people are falling off into the gorge, into the abyss below, I promise you I won't be here if there's a hippo here. I promise
True.
you that's not going to happen. I am hippo aware is what I felt like saying. So, that's probably, like, the moment where I went, "What? Oh, I promise I won't do that. I promise." So, very crazy with that. So what would you say what is the one thing, the hidden gem that exists at Niagara Falls that people go by and you're like, "Did you not just see that? That was the coolest thing." You gotta go back and look. You gotta go back and look. Or
I
do.
I think that what happens is that people tend to go to the attractions like the Cave of the Winds and do the, um, the ferry boat, and I can't think of the name of it. It's just, like, slipped my mind.
Mhm.
I can see it, um, but there's some paths that you can take where you actually then you walk across the
Mhm.
falls, and those are the places that weren't very crowded, and I think you need to take those times and experience the nature of it, not the commercial part.
Right.
Those are the things that you need to stop and experience because
Mhm.
it's amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about Victoria? What's a hidden gem? There's so many
Okay,
gems, there's so many.
no joke. Okay, here's my best hidden gem, and it doesn't have to do with the falls themselves. If you do stay at Avani or you stay at the Livingstone hotel, which is the original Livingstone Lodge, okay? If you stay, those two properties are kind of adjacent to each other. They're run together. Um, Go ahead and just at the front desk mention that you heard that there were some giraffes on the property. And lo and behold, someone will come and find you, usually a groundskeeper, and say, "We heard that maybe you would like to see our giraffes, and I would be happy to take you out to see them." And they will put you in a golf cart and they'll drive a little ways, and then you kind of walk through the hotel property. And sure enough, all of a sudden, you will see that there are four incredibly huge, incredibly beautiful giraffes that are 20 feet from you, and they are very happily munching on the leaves that are provided. But these four giraffes, I believe two are Rothschild giraffes, and the other two are, why can't I think of the other species of giraffe, but the other kind. I'm sorry, I'm not being a great teacher right now. But it was amazing. And you hear the thunder of the waterfall not that far away, and you're kind of hanging out with some giraffes. They're a little skittish. You have to be quiet, but they will let you take pictures with them, which is amazing. And these four giraffes are very happy on this property, and nobody bothers them. Nobody comes near them. So, really super, super cool thing that a lot of people don't know. I was very lucky to be told that by my friend who I was with in Lusaka, who told me to do that. And it was a huge payoff. So, love that
Okay.
one.
Okay, it's the Maid of the Mist. My brain fart went away. The Maid of the Mist boat tours. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes. Yes, I know what you're talking about. The Maid of the Mist is the one that goes under the wall,
Yes.
under behind the falls that
Yes.
you're going to get soaked on. Yes. Yes. Okay. So we kind of already talked about our next question. Terri and I kind of put these together, and she's in Florida and I'm in Maryland, and we do this remotely. So we're looking at the same list of questions on our computers. And to tell you the truth, I think we actually did a really good job of answering the next question, which is, what are the need to knows? What kind of clothing do you need? I don't think that you need a ton of waterproof clothing at Victoria Falls if you're there in the dry season. In the wet season, get ready. You're going to get soaked just like in Niagara Falls, which you answered already.
Yeah.
Time allotment. Time allotment. I say for
Oh,
Victoria Falls, I would allow 2 to 3 days. I think you can kind of do everything in 2 to 3 days, move on to your safari. What about Niagara Falls?
I mean, you could probably spend a day on the American side, walking around, doing the tours they have, watching the historical video, grabbing some lunch, you know, but I wouldn't say no more than a day. Half a day. Michael and we spent half a day there, and then we were heading out into the other areas. But of course, in Canada, because, once you get over there, you want to spend time at the falls and then go explore. So
Mhm.
I would spend a little bit more time on the Canadian side.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Remembering back, probably because it's just in itself, it's bigger.
Oh, they
Like,
have,
there's more to explore. Yeah.
the hotels are great on the Canada side. And
Mhm.
everybody, I would just beware when you look at it, you're gonna be like, "Oh, these are great prices," but they're gonna get you with other fees. So they end up costing you
Mm.
more money. So look at all your hidden fees before
Mhm.
you say, "Oh, yeah, this is a good deal." Check it out before you make your decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so you actually answered kind of the next idea, which is what things should you avoid? That's one of them, those hidden
Mm,
fees and making sure
yes,
that you're kind of getting the best deal. I would say at Victoria Falls, the thing to avoid is being guilted into buying something at the local traditional crafts market, which is right outside the park gate for the falls, and they are a little heavy-handed in the hawking department. So
oh,
you just kind of got to smile and move on and say thank you, no thank you, and you almost kind of don't even want to
don't make eye
address it.
contact. Don't make eye
Yeah,
contact.
don't make yeah. Yeah, I think it would be easier. For the must-dos, I would definitely say my must-do is the Elephant Cafe. That was an incredible experience. The other must-do, I would say, is staying at one of those hotels that's so close to the falls and finding that tour guide. I think all of those things are definitely worth it. And it seems to me like both of these experiences definitely lend themselves well to traveling on to another place. Like, it's a small amount of time and a great stopover to get you to another experience somewhere else.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to wrap up and we're going to pull everything together. Tell me, when you think back and you think about Niagara Falls,
Mhm.
what is it that's the draw? What is the magic?
I think it's the magnitude of all this water that's coming down. It's just amazing to see. Like, the power that it has is unbelievable. Unbelievable. You know,
Yeah.
and I truly think everyone, should see natural wonders, wonders that we have in the United States if you can't travel, abroad, which we can't do right now. So that's a great thing to see. I mean, it's something that you will remember forever. The one thing I remember is, if you know my husband, who's 6'5" and he wears a 15 shoe, I was impressed that they had the disposable sandals that fit him.
Oh my gosh. That's magic in itself, isn't it?
That's a magical moment right there.
I never even thought about that. That is true. It would take a lot to make sure that that happens. So good for them. They are very well prepared. I would agree with you in terms of the power being kind of an awe-striking moment, right?
Right.
Um, I would say that Victoria Falls also kind of, yeah, I felt like it brought together all the pieces of Mother Nature. You know, the animals, the water, the vegetation, the people who were caring for it, um, and kind of the pride that went with, this is what we would like to share with you. Like, I loved that part of the Zambian culture of, they were just incredible sharers, and I appreciated that so much. And so I would say that kind of the fact that Victoria Falls was almost the place where all of those things came together in such a graceful way is probably my lasting impression of the magic that came from that.
Yes.
So I think there's two totally different experiences, totally. And yet they kind of give you a lot of the same things. So I was kind of glad we had that FaceTime call that day, Terry. I think it turned
Yes.
out to be an incredible memory for both of us.
You know, the travel industry has taken quite a blow from several global issues, including the war in Ukraine, the climb out of the COVID-19 crisis, and inflation that makes it hard for people to get out into the world like they want to. At this point, leading experts are predicting that it's going to take up to 3 years for the travel industry to bounce back to full force. One way that you can help the travel industry is to like and subscribe to 10 microbloggers. Each time you do, you're telling all those travel industry experts that you are ready to enjoy everything that the world has to offer, and you can start with us.
That's right. You can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and even LinkedIn at Babcia and Yia Yia. That is Babcia and YIA. We'd love to hear from you. Contact us at babciandyaya@gmail.com with your questions, suggestions, favorite travel tips, products, and travel trends so that we can share your ideas in the future.
Babcia and Yia Yia is our home base for everything we love about travel. It's where our blog and show notes live and where we share access to all of our resources, including travel literacy for kids. We always have new posts about all the things we love about travel, including today's topics, as well as featured destinations, travel lifestyle, and stories to make you smile.
Didn't get all of that? No worries. Just check out our show notes for all of the ways to stay in touch and links to anything we chatted about in this episode. As always, thanks for joining us for our journey.